What is up, T.O.Gs? It was 100 degrees or more every day this week. And here we are out on a Saturday. You know, we are going to have to get in before what looks like rain is going to breach us. But before we're enjoying a 75-degree afternoon here at the end of May as we near summertime here in Northern California. And goodness gracious, we're out here making the most of it. But guys, there's a lot of going on in the world right now. I mean, holy crap. How many calamities, how many tragedies, how many things can happen all at once in this country, in this world? But really, I mean, a lot of it is specific to this country. And I don't like talking politics on this channel. I don't like getting into things that are just going to, you know, end up being this comment fest of negativity and of arguments and of people who say things or try to change people's minds where they're not going to change. Someone's not going to change their mind. But I just felt like letting this time in history go by without saying something or mentioning it on my channel. You know, it would do a disservice to the way I run things on my channel. It would do a disservice to myself, who does have strong feelings about what's happening in the world right now. And, you know, I purposely didn't write anything down before I started making this video because I kind of just want this to be something that really comes from how I'm feeling at the moment. Now, like I said, agree with what I'm saying, disagree, leave what you feel like in the comments. But be respectful. That's all I can ask. You know, I highly encourage you to share your opinion. Share how it is that you're feeling about the things that are going on. Maybe I'll share mine more in depth than what I'm talking about right now. But I couldn't let this go by without saying something. With this platform that I have, I'm urging you right now, if you don't agree with my opinion, think twice before you hit that unsubscribe button. You know, I think that we live in a world where we can get stuck in our own little echo chamber and really just surround ourselves with only the people that agree with us. And I think that's just a recipe for, you know, a kind of place where we don't grow, where we don't open up our minds and just make ourselves better people, because we've tried to look at things from a different point of view. We try to empathize with someone who doesn't see things the way that we do. And so with that in mind, let me just talk to you a little bit about the things that I'm talking specifically about. Obviously, the main thing that's going on in the entire world right now is COVID-19, coronavirus, the pandemic that has affected millions of people around the world. If you haven't been directly affected by it, then, I mean, that's awesome. If your life has been seemingly unchanged because of the coronavirus, then kudos to you, holy crap. But a lot of us have lost jobs, a lot of us have had to work from home, a lot of us have been stuck inside for months. And finally things around here our restrictions are being lifted, so we can go outside, we can go shopping, you know, a little bit more than just for the essentials. So before things, and this is what I wanted to talk to you, before you consider kind of just going back to normal, going outside without a mask, you know, making sure that you're constantly washing your hands, before you go back to how you were before all this happened, just be considerate. Think about, not about how wearing a mask affects you, how uncomfortable it is, you know, how you don't seem to be able to breathe well with a mask on, you know, that you're not going to get sick, that you don't care if you get sick, if you don't care if your kids get sick. But here's where I urge you all to consider your actions is, if you're not wearing a mask, it's not necessarily about you. It's about you being asymptomatic, meaning that you don't have any symptoms, but you are carrying the virus, to somebody who is at risk, who, if they got it, would be in a really, really bad place, if not, die from coronavirus. Someone in the writing community that I follow on Instagram, their father passed away from coronavirus, and it's when people that you know, or people that you know's loved ones are affected, that's when you really start thinking. So before you get to that point where someone you know passes away, or you get infected, think about others before you decide to not wear a mask when you should be wearing one, to not wash your hands, or to, instead of going out in a crowded area, or to an event where there's lots of people that can't social distance, just think twice about it. If that's all you do is carefully consider the situation, that's all I can ask, is that you're being considerate to others. The other thing that's happening right now, and this is the thing that has kept me up at night, and things that I can't stop thinking about, are the riots that happened in Minnesota, that are probably happening in other places of the country at this point in time. This is something that's really sensitive. People feel strongly on both sides of this, but here's what I want to say. I was 100% a supporter of what Colin Kaepernick did in kneeling for the national anthem. He was trying to protest the injustice, the inequality, the fundamental and the institutional racism that still exists in this country. Good God. And it's hard to believe that 50 or more years after the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, after all that has happened, all the lives that were lost, the terrible things that happened in this country, after all of that, not that much long after, it really hasn't been that long, and that's what really, really irks me, that we're back here again, where it seems like, what happened to all that progress? My initial thought is that the progress that we thought we made, a lot of it kind of just got swept under the rug, or people who felt the way that they feel about people of color, and about people who are different than them, that instead of it actually changing their minds or reshaping the way they think, they just kept it to themselves. So I think that where we thought we made a lot of progress, I think maybe a lot of the times, instead of people changing, they just kept quiet. And then we are in a climate now where those people feel enabled, they feel emboldened, they feel like the quiet racism or the quiet animosity that they felt towards a certain group of people, that it's okay to not be quiet about anymore, that they could be actively hateful towards those people. And that's where I feel like we're at right now. And it's just, oh my God, it's so frustrating. It's kind of hard for me to do this on my bike, if you can't tell. I have struggled with finding the right words, but I'm going to put the video up that I posted on my personal Facebook page, because I feel like the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. ring so much, with so much more power than me trying to quote him. So let me play that video for you right now.
Riots are socially destructive and self-defeating. I'm still convinced that non-violence is the most potent weapon available to oppress people in their struggle for freedom and justice. I feel that violence will only create more social problems than they will solve, that in a real sense it is impractical for the Negro to even think of mounting a violent revolution in the United States. So I will continue to condemn riots and continue to say to my brothers and sisters that this is not the way. Continue to affirm that there is another way. But at the same time, it is as necessary for me to be as vigorous in condemning the conditions which cause persons to feel that they must engage in riotous activities as it is for me to condemn riots. I think America must see that riots do not develop out of thin air. Certain conditions continue to exist in our society, which must be condemned as vigorously as we condemn riots. But in the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard.
So, however you feel about the riots, about the looting, about the protests that went from a non-violent protest to what happened in Minnesota, it didn't have to be that way. You know, it really didn't. But when we don't listen to what's happening, we don't see it and we don't feel it like we should, and things don't change, that's when a group of people feel like there's no other way for them to be heard. You know, it's a terrible thing. It's a really, really terrible thing. But I can't stand with the people who feel like what was happening and what happened in Minnesota was not warranted. Like I said, I didn't write anything down on this because I just wanted this to come out the way that I feel about this, and not like a prepared statement. So that's another thing that's happening. The last thing that's happening right now that's really bothering me, and this is, I would like to believe that it's happening around the world, but I'm sure it's a lot worse here in the United States than it is around the world. And that's just the inability for us to communicate respectfully. And it seems like empathy is at an all-time low. Now, as somebody, as an empath, as a person who feels what other people feel when they're feeling it, that felt like a really awkward statement, but I think you get what I'm trying to say. To feel like we can't put ourselves in someone else's shoes. And I think that is the universal answer to both of the first two problems that I was talking about. If we could just feel as much anger and as much pain as the black community, as the African American community in this country feels when someone is killed for no reason. If we can just put ourselves in the shoes of those people who are affected by tragedy like this, if we could put ourselves in the shoes of those people who have been directly affected, who have had coronavirus, who have ravaged their lives, ravaged their bodies, if we can put ourselves in those people's shoes and really feel, or try to feel what they feel, I don't think that there's any way that we could continue to be in this state that we're in. And so, guys, the whole point of this video was for me to be able to kind of just get things off my chest, for me to tell you how I feel about these things. But if there's something that I could urge you to do, that would be to think about other people. Think about other people's feelings. Think about how people feel when you do something that you feel like might be completely harmless to you. Maybe because people feel like going out without a mask on, who is it going to hurt? The only person that it could hurt is them. But that's not true. It isn't true. Maybe people feel like, I'm not racist. I've never said anything racist. I have black friends. But when you're silent when you see something racist, or when you're silent when something like this happens, it makes people who do have hateful feelings and who do hold bad feelings about a race, it makes them feel like, hey, maybe being hateful and being racist is something that's normal and okay. So I would just urge you, it's time to not be quiet anymore. If there's something that you see that's wrong, happening around you or in your life or in your family, and you feel the same way that I do, speak up. It's not the time any longer to be silent about the things around us that we see that are wrong. We need to stand in solidarity with the black community, people of color, the indigenous people. I can't, there's a lot of just terrible things that I feel like are going on that we need to not just sit silently and empathize, but it's time to start being more active about these things. But guys, that's all I've got. You know, if you like this video, please hit that thumbs up down there. Leave a comment. You know, share how you feel about this, because again, this might be that way that you start the ball rolling in your life about being an active participator in helping those people where there's so much tragedy. Guys, that's all I've got for you today. Please, 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 if you feel so inclined, hit that subscribe button. And guys, I'm that one guy, and I am out.